Hi, I'm Tommy, and today I'll be giving you some tips on Serum growls. So I haven't scripted this, I just have a couple notes pre-written, but I recently made a pretty cool growl. It sounds like this, and it serves a purpose of being able to play a melody while still maintaining that bite and aggression that you typically want out of a dubstep growl. And I'm really proud of how I made this because of how modular it is. And this is the first tip, which is put your FM and something to distort the growl on a macro knob. So with both of these all the way down, and then you can start to play with them and get such fundamentally different tones that the way that these knobs work reminds me a lot more of shaping tone on a guitar amp than on a synthesizer. And the place that I like to keep these with this specific patch is about here. So the second tip is when you're picking your wavetables to start building a growl or some sort of aggressive bass patch, you want the carrier, which is the one that has the volume still turned up, to be a relatively basic waveform, because if you watch FM, like if you watch this actual shape here, if I can land this LFO somewhere on the higher end, see how distorted it becomes compared to when it's not as frequency modulated. It's not as distorted. And part of the changing of a sound with frequency modulation is to distort the waveform. And there's a catch with this too, and that's that you typically don't want to distort using a modulator, which is the one with the volume turned down, that is too complex. You also don't want it to be too simple though. It's this really, really fine balance, where like I've found that a slightly distorted or slightly altered saw or triangle or square will give you much more interesting harmonic content than just using a normal saw or something. The next tip is to always use your sub-oscillator for the body, and then oscillators A and B for the top end, but don't worry about making them sound super beefy. Like, if you hear this patch without the sub, there isn't really a lot going on in the low end. But with the sub, and also, what waveform you pick for your sub is really important. So, sine waves don't really have the harmonic content to give a lot, whereas things like squares, or saws, and kind of triangles, will give a lot more harmonic content. And the way that you can think about this is that typically you want clean subs, warm mids, and kind of like low mids, and then all of the texture and the unique character of your sound is going to come from the higher parts of it. And a lot of people say, oh, you know, always use a sine wave as a sub because it's the cleanest, but really they're all going to have a sine wave as the fundamental frequency. And if you choose to use a triangle or saw or square as your sub, what you're doing is just contributing more harmonic content to the mids and kind of to the highs. And so you're really just supplementing all the texture that you're building with the rest of your oscillators. Hey, I know I said that the last thing was the final tip, but I guess you're getting a bonus, and that is to throw one of these mod knobs on the mix for the reverb. It's just really interesting to be able to take a growl from this to this. The opportunities that this gives you for arrangement, for either easing it in by turning this down over time, or, you know, maybe you're hooking this up to a delay as well and you're making it something really ambient. Maybe you're doing something like... maybe something like that. Who knows? But people always think of growls as these, you know, hyper-compressed, up-in-your-face types of sounds, because really that's what they are, and that's what they're meant to be. But you can also use them as a basis for sound design, and for making, you know, ambient sections like this, or maybe for pulling up, like, a low pass through a build or a drop, and kind of having it come in this way that people over time realize what it is. There's a lot of potential there with it, and my favorite way to do it is by softening it with reverbs and occasionally delays. So that's it for this video. I hope some of these tips will be able to help you with basses and growls and distorts in Serum. If you have any questions, let me know, and a download link will be in the description. As always, I hope you learned something.